So, on March 3rd, 2020, Ohio police were called to a 911 emergency call at a home in Akron. And there, they found Brenda Powell lying on her kitchen floor, suffering from around 30 stab wounds to her neck. Her daughter, Sydney, was in the house and initially claimed it had been a violent home invasion. And despite her own injuries, there were inconsistencies that emerged from her story. See, at the time of the attack, Brenda had been speaking with one of Sydney's college professors over the phone. And mid-conversation, Brenda just suddenly started to scream, and then the line went silent. When the professor called back, someone else answered, claiming to be Brenda, but he immediately suspected it was Sydney, and fearing something terrible had happened. The professor called 911, and police arrived promptly. The chilling scream and urgent 911 call had given the police enough probable cause to force entry into the home, and what awaited the officer inside was a horrifying scene.
Akron Police! Akron Police! Where's your mom at? Okay, stay right here.
No, there's so much blood. No, please! Mom!
Man!
She's recording now! No!
Stop!
We gotta figure out what's going on.
Can you sit down? R9, get that 32 rolling here quick. We got a female down, blood all over the place. Sergeant Smart, you just got a crime scene. Take her outside. You got she's big blood all over. I don't know if she's breathing. Secure the scene. She looks like a 22. She looks like she's been down for a while. There's blood all over the place. There's a knife by her head and stuff like that, and there's a huge pool of blood. No, I think she just walked in on it. There's a broken window in the back, so if you can just put up some crime scene tape. As soon as AFD gets here, they're going to pronounce her, I'm sure.
Upon inspection, it became evident that Brenda had not only suffered multiple stab wounds, but she had also been struck on the head with an iron skillet. Man, her injuries were so severe that it was stated she was fighting for her life.
Wait, she's on the ground. So there's...
Who is it?
My mom! There's someone broke in the back window.
All right, hold on.
And she's on the ground. And there's
Come on. Come on.
Is she gonna be okay?
Come on.
I want my dad.
What happened? What's going on? What's going on?
We heard a bang. We heard a bang. And she told me to get out. And then I heard screaming. So I came back and she was on the ground.
Okay, you heard a bang.
There was a bang. Someone broken.
What is your name?
Sydney.
Are you cut?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're cut somewhere.
I don't think so.
Yeah, your hand.
No, I was helping her. I grabbed her.
All right, stop.
I grabbed the knife.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know. We just got
Dad. I'm the dad.
Okay,
Sydney. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Daddy!
And Sydney, visibly shaken and injured, seemed to be in shock and barely holding herself together. Even when her father, Steve Powell, arrived, Sydney remained inconsolable. Police quickly secured the crime scene, determined to piece together what had truly happened.
The back window's broken in!
So you're gonna have to
Daddy!
inside there. So
I don't know! There
go
was
check
so much
the lady in the
blood!
house. Okay. She's got minor cuts.
Inside the house, police found a broken window alongside the knife used to stab Brenda. However, blood smeared on the outside of the window suggested it had been broken after the attack. And despite this evidence, Sydney claimed that the intruder had entered through the window, asserting it was shattered before the assault. And this contradiction raised immediate suspicions and marked the beginning of a series of inconsistencies in her account that detectives would need to investigate further.
Interesting. Somewhere that's not you. Okay, do we know who, where, which way? That's the younger guy. I'm looking through here and I can see pictures. and there's a whole basement set up for what looks.
Yep, hey, sorry, I'll call you right back. Bye. All right, let me go report that.
Yeah, there's got a man. It's probably her brother.
Well, see if we can find out who else lives here.
Given the gravity of the situation and the multitude of unanswered questions, the police took some time to interview neighbors in the area. They needed to gather as much info as they could, and at this moment, the only person providing coherent insights was Sydney's father.
Okay. Do you live here, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my wife and there's my daughter.
How old's your daughter?
She'll be 20 in March. She's 19 today. Is she coming out?
Yeah. No, not yet, sir. Just can't hang out.
Sydney, can you tell me what happened? Huh? Sydney. Sydney.
On its way?
Yeah, it's coming.
From where?
Yeah, that's him right there. I can hear him.
Hey, boss.
In their efforts to unravel this mystery, police interviewed Steve Powell and one of Sydney's friends at the station. They were hoping they could clarify what had happened. However, Steve was completely unaware that Sydney was the attacker and that his wife was in critical condition at the hospital with little hope of survival. And so the detectives realized they would have to deliver this devastating news to him sooner rather than later, which added to the complexity of this unfolding investigation.
Who'd you get a call from? Yeah.
Got a call from him, called me.
Oh, okay.
He said there was a call, went out, a distress call from the University of Mount Union where my daughter was going, and said, female in distress. I said, well, that's funny because Brenda's there, my wife. So I called Brenda, and it rings and rings on the cell phone, no answer. I call Sydney back, rings and rings and rings, no answer. I call Brenda back, ring, 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 no answer. I'm pacing around. I call Chief back, and I'm on the phone with him, telling him there's no answer. My doctor calls me back. I said, oh, Mom's on the phone with Mount Union. I said, well, cops are on the way. And she went, there's been a break-in, and she just started going off. She said, what? She said, there's been somebody broke into the house. There's blood everywhere. She was hysterical and crying.
So at first, when you talked to her, she said that your wife was on the phone with Mount Union.
Yes. And as soon as I said, cops are on the way, the hysteria started.
Is she still attending?
Well, as far as we knew up until today, yes, but apparently not for the last, I don't know, maybe couple weeks.
Now, what Sydney had failed to disclose to her parents was that she had been expelled from college weeks before the incident and had been deceiving them ever since. But her friends knew. She confided in her friends, including Lauren, who lived in the same dorm.
Now, we understand that Sydney was your roommate at Mount Union?
Yes, she was for last year and then this year until she left.
And so you've been friends ever since your sophomore freshman year at St. B?
Mm-hmm.
You go over each other's houses, everything like that?
Yep. Well, she started off in exercise science freshman year, her first semester. But then she didn't like the classes, so she switched over to psychology and sociology. But then she didn't really like that, so this year she switched to education, and then she didn't like that either, and that's one of the reasons she left, is because she really couldn't find what she liked. I think she struggled in her classes. I don't think her grades were the best, but she didn't really tell me that, because I wasn't really struggling. I think she kept a lot of stuff hidden, because when we were just talking or with our friends, she always seemed happy. Like, she seemed okay, like I said, I couldn't tell until the end where she was kind of just like struggling and she kind of was sad and just like, Lauren, I don't know what to do. I think she felt like everybody around her kind of had figured out what they wanted to do and she hadn't.
Understanding Sydney's mental state leading up to the incident is crucial for detectives so that they can determine whether she simply snapped or if this was premeditated. However, Sydney claims she has no recollection of the events surrounding the attack, and she intends to build her entire defense on the assertion that she blacked out, even alleging insanity. And this complicates the investigation as police lack solid evidence to conclusively label Sydney as the guilty party here. Yet, they are beginning to uncover that she had been concealing secrets from nearly everyone.
Well, I know she's had anxiety for a while, but I think those this last semester, like starting coming back in January, is when it really started, that she was kind of more like upset because she really didn't know what she wanted to do. My friends and I were worried for her because we didn't know what was going on because she didn't tell us.
Lauren sensed that something was amiss and attempted to support Sydney. And initially, she had no reason to doubt her friend and offered as much help as she could during such a difficult time. However, as time went on, even Lauren became wary of Sydney's evasive behavior.
I could tell she was getting more upset, like more sad, and I told her, like, I'm here, like, you can tell me I'm here for you. If you need anything, I'm here. But she never really opened up until she was leaving and saying that she was struggling with school and that she was kind of trying to figure out what was going on, and that's when I started to try to help her.
Let's talk about this. You're her best friend, and I know this is difficult, but tell us about her relationship with her parents.
Her and her parents had a really good relationship. Like, her mom and her were best friends. Probably, like, they did everything together. Like, one of the reasons she went home was to be with her mom. They were always close. She never said anything bad about her mom. She never ever talked about having an argument with her mom. Like, I can't recall every time she'd be going home, she's like, I can't wait to see my mom. Or when she goes home for weekends, she'd be like, oh, my mom wants me to come home so we can hang out and like watch movies. And she loved being home.
At this stage, Sydney found herself entangled in a web of lies that would end up being too difficult for her to untangle. Rather than admitting the truth, she chose to portray college as an unsuitable fit for her. Sydney attempted to persuade her parents that they could save significantly on tuition costs if she left school to explore other pursuits that she wanted to do.
What's going on? Are you not going to school? She goes, I'm overwhelmed in school and I don't really like what I'm doing and it seems like it's a waste of my time and your money. I said, well, but that's all part of it. Nobody's going to tell you you need to do what you're doing when you're 20. You need to figure it out.
However, the narrative didn't align with what she shared with her friends.
So when she's talking to you about, the problems she's having at school, did she mention that she tried talking to her parents?
Yeah, I know she definitely, especially when she left, she talked to her mom about leaving. They kind of made that decision together to leave Mount. Like, she told them that.
Lauren's suspicions were confirmed. Sydney had been lying to everyone, and at the same time, she deceived her parents, who remained unaware of her college troubles. That was until they received a call from a professor. Alarmed, Steve and Brenda began crisis talks, determined to uncover the truth about their daughter's situation and understand the depths of her struggles.
So I went back, I called my wife on my daughter's phone. She picks up, she was working down at Children's, and she goes, what's wrong? And I basically told her, I said, Sydney, I think the reason we can't get on is because she's unenrolled. She hasn't been going to school.
So Sydney found herself entangled in two different lies, one for her friends and another for her parents. Failing grades aren't the end of the world. It really isn't, and a lot of parents will still support their child during tough times like these. However, Sydney believed her parents would be angry, and she couldn't bring herself to admit that she had been asked to leave college, further complicating her situation.
Yeah, we asked what she was doing, and she said she was good. Like, she acted like what we would see as normal. Like, she was laughing, she was having fun. She said she got jobs, because she works at the Akron Harbor Ducks. She's worked there for a couple seasons, so she was gonna go back there. And then she also said she was looking for another job, and like everything was good, and she was trying to figure out like her next year and all this stuff, and she was gonna talk to her parents about housing, trying to come back to Mount.
Once she got to Mount Union, or anytime actually, did Sydney ever drink alcohol at all, or she did? Mm-hmm. Okay, just kind of describe that for us.
She liked to drink. There was an incident in the fall of our freshman year where she drank too much, and she wasn't alcohol poisoned, but she did end up in the hospital. Her mom came and got her at like 2 in the morning. Usually after that, her and I were together, and if she did drink, I usually kind of like slow her down after I'm kind of her limit, because she's small.
Detectives suspect Sydney snapped during her mother's phone call with the college professor, attempting to silence Brenda and cover her lies forever. Despite claiming she couldn't remember anything, Sydney made some critical mistakes that helped detectives piece together the horrifying scene of events. So, in a fit of rage, she struck her mother with an iron skillet and then stabbed her over 30 times with a steak knife. To deflect suspicion, she impersonated Brenda on the phone, and then she staged a break-in, trying to conceal her involvement in the crime while the tragic truth unraveled.
Were you able to go in the house at all?
I made it in far enough to see the back fence. When you go into the front door, you come around the kitchen, you go in, you can see there's like a pass-through between the kitchen and the family room. From the back of the house, I could see the right hand, there's two big sliding windows. I could see that window was clearly, it looked like it was busted. Went down the hallway probably about 2 feet, just you could see blood all the way down the hallway.
And unfortunately, Brenda did not survive her injuries, and she passed away in the hospital. The county medical examiner concluded that she died from blunt force trauma to her head and the multiple stab wounds to the neck, officially ruling her death a homicide. This heartbreaking news fell to detectives, who had to inform Steve that his wife was gone.
Well, not really bad news. Your wife passed away.
Detectives looked into Sydney's claims of an intruder being responsible for the attack, but their investigation revealed inconsistencies that contradicted her story. The evidence began to tell a different tale, leading to one final, devastating duty for the detectives, which is them having to inform Steve that his own daughter was responsible for killing his wife.
What happened?
I don't think someone broke into the house. I don't know if your wife and daughter got into an argument, got physical. I mean, the window was broken, but there's no forced entry into the house. Did your wife and daughter ever have like really heated arguments?
No. This is not possible.
Your son's outside, but he doesn't know.
My son's here?
Yes.
Would you like one of us to just go be with your son?
I don't know. I don't know.
Take your time. There's no rush for me.
Yo, it's unimaginable to consider what Steve is going through at this moment. His wife has just been murdered, and his daughter is the primary suspect. As the reality sinks in, Steve begins to accept that the detectives might be right, leading him to face the heartbreaking task of delivering the devastating news to his son.
Clearly they think Sydney did this. I lost 2. She's going to jail forever. Wife's dead.
I know we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they find out exactly what happened. Nothing's definite as of yet. They still have to do their investigating.
And where's Andrew? He just sit out there by himself, or is he with?
Family or so to speak.
Well, yeah, I don't want anybody in here with me when I talk to him. I don't want anybody. I just want me and him. I don't know if that's legal. I don't care.
Yeah, you don't want any of that?
I don't want any of you. No, I just want Andrew.
So you just come and get us when you're ready, okay?
Do you want me to do it? They don't know. They haven't told me. They're investigating.
Sydney ended up being arrested and was charged with the murder of Brenda Powell. And initially, she pleaded insanity, claiming she had little memory of the events, including hitting Brenda with the cast iron skillet and fatally stabbing her. However, the jury did not find her credible enough and convicted her on 2 counts of murder, 1 count of felonious assault, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. And ultimately, Sydney Powell was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years.
Well, not really bad news. Your wife passed away.
On April 29, 2022, CCTV footage captured prison supervisor Vicky entering through a back door. Just 30 seconds later, she re-emerged, this time accompanied by Casey White, a towering 6'9" convict. Casey White, who was serving a 75-year sentence for attempted murder, walked out with her. In an unexpected and shocking turn of events, they quickly fled in a car, leaving authorities scrambling to understand what the hell had just happened. Vicky, a seasoned prison supervisor with over 2 decades of spotless service, had just vanished alongside a dangerous criminal? Initially, police believed she had been coerced or maybe manipulated into aiding Casey White's escape. But soon, new evidence surfaced suggesting that Vicky might have orchestrated this entire plot. As a nationwide manhunt unfolded, investigators discovered the situation was far more complex than anticipated. The dark and twisted trail eventually led to a tragic end, with Vicky found dead, a bullet wound to her head. So, on April 29th, 2022, prison officer Vicky informed her colleagues that she was transporting a prisoner to a psychological evaluation at the local courthouse. However, something didn't seem right because she was escorting the inmate alone, despite strict protocols requiring 2 officers for such transfers. But due to her senior position as a supervisor, no one questioned her actions, allowing her to leave without any issue.
When he brought in here, he had been seated on one of these benches and prepared for transport. Basically means put in handcuffs, leg shackles, and they're connected by a chain.
It wasn't until 6 hours later that police realized something was terribly wrong. Vicky and the prisoner had just vanished without a trace. And desperate for answers, authorities quickly turned their attention to the man she had taken with her, Casey White, a violent offender serving 75 years for domestic violence, home invasion, murder, and brutally assaulting a man with an axe. But one crime scene stood out to investigators even more. So apparently 7 years earlier, Casey White had abused and manipulated his then girlfriend to the point where she desperately tried to escape his violent grip. After she managed to reach a friend's house for safety, Casey tracked them down and broke in, armed with 2 guns, and the intent to kill both women. Fortunately, they escaped his brutal attack and survived. Casey, however, fled the scene, launching a multi-state crime spree that included a string of carjackings. His rampage eventually culminated in a tense standoff with multiple police officers before he was finally captured.
Well, look, just calm down for me. Look. Just calm down for me, brother. The sheriff will be here in just a minute, okay? Alright? Sheriff's getting off on the Tanner exit.
In an unusual tactic, the police rolled a drink and a pack of cigarettes toward Casey, hoping it would calm him down and prevent a violent confrontation. Remarkably, this strategy worked, allowing the officers to safely approach and to make an arrest. During his interrogation, they gained an even clearer insight into the depths of his insanity.
I've been trying to wait just to kill her ever since. I couldn't wait no longer. I had to do it tonight.
Do you regret what you did tonight?
I regret I didn't kill him.
Police now had a clearer understanding of the man Vicky had helped escape from prison, but questions remained about her involvement. After all, she worked at a completely different facility, and there were no plans for Casey to ever see the outside world again. However, a year later, Casey confessed to another murder, which led to his transfer to a different prison. And it was this pivotal moment that set off a chain of events that would ultimately end up in Vicky's tragic death. The murder case he confessed to ended up being a cold case involving a 4-year-old child. And it remains unclear why he chose to come forward now, but he provided specific details about the crime that really only the true killer would know. Following a brief trial, he was swiftly transferred to a new prison, the very same facility where Vicky worked. And Vicky, who was 56, had been divorced for several years and dedicated her heart and soul to her job as a model employee. She was well liked amongst her colleagues, but her life had grown dull and lonely, longing for change. And everything shifted when Casey entered her life. They gradually began to converse more, forming a connection that deepened as they discovered they shared the same last name. This sparked the belief that they were destined to be together. I mean, Vicky started to come in on her off days, and her demeanor was noticeably brighter. And despite appearing to have a fulfilling life on the surface, Vicky felt enchanted by her growing feelings for Casey, leading her to consider throwing everything away to be with a dangerous criminal. This kind of attraction, though not as rare as one might think, often draws people to those who embody risk and danger. They find a thrill in knowing that someone could harm them, yet they feel special that this person chooses not to. Additionally, Vicky had begun to feel trapped in her mundane daily routine, believing she had little to live for anymore, which only fueled her desire for a dramatic change. If Vicky could break free with Casey, it would at least bring excitement to her monotonous life, even if it meant sacrificing everything she had. While Casey was serving time at Lauderdale, Vicky granted him unrestricted access to areas of the jail that were typically off limits to inmates, including parts not monitored by security cameras. Many speculate that this is where the pair became intimate and where they devised their escape plan. At this point, Vicky had no inkling that this would become the worst mistake of her life. So 3 days before their escape, they decided to conduct a test run. Vicky informed her colleagues that Casey had an appointment with a judge at the courthouse, but in reality, there was no such appointment. Instead, they just spent 9 minutes sitting in her patrol car before returning back to the jail, using that to confirm that their plan may actually work. And with newfound confidence, they began preparations for the real escape. 2 days before the big day, they were captured on surveillance camera, passing notes believed to contain the final details of their escape plan. However, by the time authorities discovered this footage, it was already too damn late. On April 29, 2022, everything was in place for their escape. As a senior officer at the prison, Vicky wielded certain powers that she damn well intended to exploit. She arranged for 12 inmates and 5 deputies to be taken to court on the day of the escape, leaving her as the sole officer with any transport privileges. She then informed her superiors that Casey needed to be taken for a mental health evaluation, and reviewing the surveillance footage revealed clear signs that something was amiss. So Vicky had her firearm with her, which apparently is strictly prohibited inside the prison, and she walked in front of Casey instead of behind him, which demonstrated her trust in him, that he would not harm her. By facilitating Casey's escape, esteemed prison officer Vicky had thrown everything she worked for away, transforming in an instant from a respected officer to a criminal.
Vicky's always been a good girl. I went to school with her. It's got to be other people involved, and Vicky's just a scapegoat.
I feel like if she had anything to do with it, it was definitely love, because I don't see Vicky doing that, because she's always loved her job.
Vicky and Casey stepped out of the prison appearing completely at ease as they entered a patrol car and drove away toward freedom. It took a full 6 hours for anyone to realize they were missing, and when the prison called the courthouse to inquire about their status, they were met with the shocking news that there was no appointment scheduled. The grim realization dawned on them that Casey had meticulously orchestrated his escape. To evade the authorities quickly, Vicky and Casey ditched the patrol car and fled the state, leaving law enforcement scrambling for clues about their whereabouts. This marked the beginning of an 11-day nationwide manhunt. On the first day of their escape, police rushed to Vicky's home, but she was nowhere to be found. In fact, they actually learned that she no longer owned the house. See, as part of her plan, she had sold it for a fraction of its value, using the money to purchase vehicles, firearms, and most suspiciously, men's clothing. This was the first clear indication that Vicky did not intend to return, that she was ready to start a whole new life with Casey. Things took a turn for the worse for detectives when they discovered the abandoned patrol vehicle at a local shopping mall. And even more frustrating was the absence of surveillance footage in the parking lot, leaving them absolutely clueless about which direction Vicky and Casey had taken. On the second day of the manhunt, a tip from Vicky's family opened a new avenue for the investigation. They revealed that she had been renting a storage unit and the police quickly located the unit where they found evidence that Vicky was using a burner phone. However, despite their best efforts to track this new number, law enforcement hit a dead end still. See, the discovery of the burner phone provided solid evidence that Vicky was the one to have planned the escape, and that she was not merely a hostage in this situation. In fact, she was a willing participant in this dangerous game.
Did you get the sense they were actually doing this together, just not forcing her in any way?
Right, no, he was not forcing her. It was a mutual relationship.
You might think this discovery would help the investigation, but things only became more chaotic and perplexing from here on out. After realizing they were essentially back to square one, the police returned to the shopping mall where they had found the abandoned patrol car. They decided to go through all the surveillance footage from the days leading up to the escape. And that's when they spotted Vicky a few days before the escape, casually parking a car in a nearby lot. However, this wasn't her usual vehicle. It was a 2007 Ford Edge that she had purchased just days prior, and the police quickly pieced together that this had to be their getaway car. But when they returned to the parking lot to retrieve the vehicle, they were hit with another twist. Vicky had apparently left a decoy. The police had just lost their only lead, giving Vicky and Casey a 5-day head start. With the abandoned Ford out of the picture, investigators assumed the pair had found another vehicle nearby, and sure enough, they quickly picked up a new lead. See, a local homeowner reported that he had sold his Ford F-150 pickup truck to a man who approached his house on the day Vicky and Casey apparently went missing. The man was described as being around 6'9" tall and matched the picture the police showed him. Now, all they had to do was track down that F-150 so they can put an end to this manhunt. By day 6, another promising lead came in from the owner of a car wash in Indiana. He noticed the Ford F-150 parked in one of the cleaning bays for an unusually long time and suspected it might be abandoned. But something about this truck didn't sit right with him. He felt it was too nice to have simply been discarded. Growing increasingly suspicious, he decided to check the car wash's surveillance footage, and what he discovered was shocking. On the video, he spotted Casey getting out of the pickup and acting strangely, glancing around as if he was waiting for someone. And just out of frame, Vicky was in another vehicle, ready to drive off when Casey climbed into the new car and left their old pickup behind. The car wash owner knew something was off about this, and without hesitation he called 911, alerting the authorities that they were hot on the trail of the fugitives once again.
I have a car wash on Weinbach. There's a truck been sitting in my bay since yesterday at 3 o'clock, and it's got the keys in it. It's got Tennessee license plates on it. I looked at my cameras, and the guy's kind of suspicious. Just only seen one get out of it.
Was it a male?
Yeah, it's a male, a tall male.
The following day, law enforcement officials descended upon the car wash to search for the abandoned truck.
This is a return to a Dodge?
Yep. DNL 59.
Sam 130, then check. One F Frank T Tom R Robert W 12W 86 K King C Charles 18262 press 175. Attach that VIN to the run card like the freight returns to this truck. It's a Ford. Good.
Then I saw her and I followed it.
Clear.
And it wasn't until 4 days later that this crucial tip finally reached detectives. By then, time was running out and every minute mattered. The moment the lead came in, they dropped everything and raced towards Evansville. It was now day 10 of the manhunt, and they were expected to arrive at the car wash by 9 a.m. The car wash owner's frustration boiled over, and tired of waiting, he decided to take action himself. And I don't know why, but he ended up picking up the phone and calling the local press as the media frenzy surrounding Vicky and Casey's escape reached a boiling point.
So I get on the phone to Fox News. I said, y'all want a story? Yeah, we like a story. I said, I got one. Well, I got a convict over at my car wash. I got him on camera. He said, you talking about the one in Kentucky? I said, no, I'm talking about the one in Alabama with the girl. He said, okay, we'll be right there. They showed up. They got there 10 minutes before the marshals.
The United States Marshals were combing through the surveillance footage for any sign of the fugitives, and miraculously, they spotted a Cadillac that Vicky and Casey believed was off their radar. It felt like the walls were closing in on them, and even with this promising lead, the authorities struggled to track them down. It was becoming clear that the two could be anywhere in the country. However, fate had other plans. Back in Evansville on day 11 of the manhunt, a weary police officer was returning home for a long shift when he noticed a familiar vehicle parked outside Motel 41 and looked just like the Cadillac from the car wash. And without hesitation, he jotted down the license plate number. But there was just one problem. The Cadillac's plate from the car wash had never been recorded. But determined to connect the dots, the officer decided to check the license plate of the recovered F-150 they had found earlier. And to their astonishment, multiple traffic cameras had captured the F-150, and in nearly every frame, a Cadillac was following closely behind. So when they matched the license plate from the Cadillac to the one at Motel 41, excitement surged through the detectives. Now, they finally had a solid lead on their fugitives. Without wasting any time, deputy marshals took up positions around the motel, donning plain clothes and hiding in unmarked vehicles to remain covert. And meanwhile, inside of room 115, Vicky and Casey were glued to the TV, their heads racing as they watched the news break about the discovery of the Ford F-150. And little did they know, their time on the run was running out. The plan had been simple: bring Vicky and Casey in quietly without drawing attention. But things quickly took a turn for the worse. When Vicky suddenly emerged from the hotel room, she tossed a bag into the Cadillac, and right behind her was Casey. And despite their attempts to disguise themselves, Casey's towering frame was impossible to miss. Within moments, he was in the driver's seat, and they sped off before the authorities could act. The cops' carefully laid plan was instantly derailed. They had a backup strategy, which was to follow the fugitives and box them in, hoping to avoid a dangerous confrontation. But as they tailed the Cadillac, it became clear that they'd been spotted, and Casey wasted no time turning onto the highway and slamming on the gas. What followed was a wild chase through the traffic, swerving in and out of parking lots. And finally, in a desperate bid to escape, Casey veered off the road and tore across an open field.
God. Airbags are going on. Let's get out. Hotel.
Just as Casey thought he was making his escape, a police vehicle forced him off course, sending the Cadillac crashing straight into a ditch. This high-speed pursuit came to an immediate stop. But the tension was far from over. The officers knew all too well that both Casey and Vicky were armed, and the situation could escalate into a violent standoff at any damn moment.
Where's he at? I'm back in my bed. Please, check him out. It's my wife. Gosh, check him out.
It's my wife. She's that's the best woman in the world right there. Please, that's the best woman in the world. Vicky, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry, baby. Anybody in this world don't deserve it. She don't. When she herself, it hit me. But y'all ain't gonna believe me. I'm gonna say I killed her. Just like y'all say I killed everybody else.
After 11 days, the manhunt finally came to a close. Casey White was captured, unharmed, and placed in handcuffs. But Vicky White's fate was far more tragic. I mean, just weeks earlier, she had been a respected prison officer, known for her dedication and admired by her colleagues. But now, she lay in the wreckage of a stolen car, critically injured and barely conscious. A fugitive whose life had spiraled out of control.
David, she good? No, she's good. She's still got the winner hand. Yes, she's got a gun. Medic right here, medic. Get back. Still in her hand? Yes. Yeah, it's in her hand. Still breathing. I gotta break this sucker up here. You go in? Well, I think we can reach in to get the gun. It might be easier in the windshield. See, little open. Good idea. We got cover? Yeah. It's opening. It's opening. You got me? I'm gonna go for the gun first. All right, put me out. All right, I got it.
Vicky White was found with a gunshot wound to the head, and Casey White claimed she had taken her own life. As the police closed in, her finger was still on the trigger when they found her. Vicky was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital later that day. Man, we may never truly know what Vicky and Casey had envisioned for their future. I mean, did they hope to disappear off the grid and live quietly? Or were they prepared to spend the rest of their lives on the run? I mean, whatever dreams Vicky may have had, Casey's plans for her were far more sinister. He later described her as a liability, someone ill-equipped for a life on the run. It's likely he would have abandoned or even killed her off soon. And as for Casey White, he was convicted of first-degree prison escape and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole until he's 98 years old. This violent man who manipulated and helped destroy the life of a once respected prison officer will more than likely remain behind bars for the rest of his days.